to welcome you out to the Planning Commission today, October 23rd, and call this meeting to order. We need to have a roll call.
Chairman Cox.
Here.
Vice Chairman Rajaratnam.
Here.
Commissioner Yates.
Here.
Commissioner Dehan. Here. And Commissioner Ferris is absent. 4 present. We have a quorum.
Thank you. Would you rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? And Mr. Fallgetter, would you mind leading us?
Face the flag, please. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Be seated. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Chairman Cox.
Aye.
Vice Chairman Rajaratnam.
Aye.
Commissioner Yates.
Aye.
Commissioner Dehan. Aye. 4 ayes. Motion carries.
Do I have a motion to approve the minutes of last meeting?
I so move.
Second.
Chairman Cox.
Aye.
Vice Chairman Rajaratnam.
Aye.
Commissioner Yates.
Aye.
Commissioner Dehan. Aye. 4 ayes. Motion carries.
We move into item 6, our public comment items not on the agenda. Persons wishing to address the Commission on matters that are within the Commission's jurisdiction and do not already appear on the agenda may do so at this time. Pursuant to the Brown Act, the Planning Commission may not take action on any item that does not appear on the agenda. Speakers are limited to 5 minutes. The public comment section of the agenda is limited to a total of 1 hour. Each speaker is asked to provide his or her name and address. We will now open the public comment. 6:04. Seeing a rush up to the mic, we will close the public comment section at 6:05. Move into item 7. This is a continuation, and so I'm going to reopen this public hearing. This is a site plan review for the SPR 18-08 Sunland Apartments. Consideration of a site plan review 1808, an application to allow for the development of 192 multifamily unit complex for rental properties. The proposed project is located on East Bataan Avenue and Sunland Street in an R2 designated zone on a 17.56 acre APN 343-351-0409-13. Staff report.
So this is for a consideration of a site plan for Sunland Apartments project. It's a 192 apartment complex. Phase 1 consists of 7.899 acres with 64 2-bedroom, 2-bath units and 32 3-bedroom, 2-bath units for a total of 96 units. Phase 1 also includes a recreational building, storage buildings, and garages. Phase 2 consists of 7.023 acres with 64 2-bedroom, 2-bath units and 32 3-bedroom, 2-bath units. This project consists of parcels 4 and 5 of the amended parcel map 11524, which first came to the Planning Commission in August of 2006. Tentative parcel map 11524 was amended and an extension was granted by the Planning Commission in June of this year. The project site is vacant land. To the north is vacant land. East is residential. South is zoned R1. And to the west is the assisted living facility and the church. This is the site plan. As you'll see, both phases include a retention basin, and there's a total of 16 two-story buildings along with the recreation and storage buildings. These are some of the proposed floor plans. and the building exteriors. So also included in this packet is a deferral agreement of the development impact fees that will be taken to the City Council. I will make one note of a change to the resolution. In the Public Works Conditions 8.2, it says pay all development impact fees pursuant to the City Council approved the improvement agreement, and that should say deferral. Staff would recommend that the Commission approve the site plan. The City Engineer is here to answer any of the questions for the Public Works Conditions, and also the developer, and the project engineer is here too.
I'm sorry, can you go over the change you said with the deferral? What part is being removed or modifying? I'm looking at the clause. I just wasn't sure what part of the sentence we are.
It's condition 8.2. It says improvement, and it should say deferral.
Oh, so the deferral agreement
Yeah.
is all. Okay, thank you.
Commissioner comments or questions?
I do have one question. Is the Commission doing anything with the development impact fee agreement, or does that go to City Council?
That will go to City Council.
So we don't have to deal with that, right?
No, you do not.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from the Commission?
Is this regular housing or Section 8 housing? Do we know?
This is regular.
Regular housing.
Lauren, would you mind coming up? I have a couple of questions on the resolution. Go for me to Section 2, street lighting. It says, coordinate with Southern California Edison and make financial arrangements for the construction of decorative street lighting for Bataan Avenue, South Sunland Street, Gemstone Street, and an unnamed Central Street, which is that, if anybody doesn't know what that Central Street is, I believe it's the street separating Phase 1, Phase 2. So the question that I have here is, I would almost like to have added there around development, because the way it states here, because it borders both on the east and the west, these streets. Are we asking them to put streetlights in all the way to College Heights?
No, I believe, Mr. Chairman, no, I believe we're just asking for the perimeter streets at this time, not the off-site.
Okay.
There's
so
an off-site portion of access to this project, which is off of College Heights Court, and then a short reach of Bataan. And we are not asking for those streetlight improvements on the off-site portion, just on the on-site portion.
So whatever language the commission would like, I'd like to have it designated so it's limited to around the development or whatever the commission may feel is my suggestion, because it leaves it open-ended if we don't.
I agree. It is a bit ambiguous.
Okay. Then let's go to Section 3, please. And Mr. Whitten, some of this you might be able to help us with too, but Lauren, it says in item 1, it has been proposed that the entire apartment complex site and adjacent residential tracts to the south be served by a private sewer lift station and private sewage forced main connecting to the gravity sewer line in College Heights Boulevard. It goes down through 2 and 3. So I need some details there, and my concern is this is a public hearing, and normally on a public hearing, we notify 300 feet of the project, and I am concerned that we're adding in the tracks to the south. We're impacting people that aren't here to represent themselves, and we're putting that in a private entity. 2 goes on to say the private sewage lift station shall be owned, maintained, repaired, and replaced by the private entity and will not be the responsibility of the city of Ridgecrest. But yet we're tying somebody in other than the apartment complex. And so that may be a deferral of costs, but are these people a party to it?
Mr. Cox.
Yes, sir.
The residential tract that's being referred to here is the tract map that's located along the south, in the southern portion of this property that's owned by the developer of the apartment complex. So this lift station is going to be designed to serve the apartments and the 100 or so future residential single-family homes that will be built by the same developer on the project to the south. It doesn't affect anybody in the future or any land that's not currently controlled by the developer. So essentially, this is a condition that he would have to enforce upon himself.
So maybe the language should be tracts to the south owned by the developer.
Well, or we could
Or it's open-ended because south is all the way up to the college.
Yeah, we need to specify the tract number.
So can we get the tract number if we're going to... Anyway, I'm concerned with the language there. And with the expense of a lift station, this is not something that we could go down to Sunland and connect in where Walmart did. It's more expensive to do that than it is to actually create a pump station.
No, we are doing a lift station.
Yeah,
But we
I know. I
can't-
understand that. I'm saying you're doing a lift station over to College Heights.
Right.
My understanding is, in reading the material that was given, is long-term they want to connect to Sunland and down off of Upjohn, right?
Right.
So I'm wondering where Walmart connected in. Is it more expensive to go connect in down there than it is to create a lift station or a pump station?
Walmart, I'm about 95% certain that Walmart's lift station is also a private lift station, and Walmart's not going to let anybody else connect into their lift
Okay.
station. The problem is that even though there's a trunk line in College Heights that's running north, or it's flowing to the north, it sits in the ground with about 6 feet of cover on it, maybe 7. And then the ground from College Heights going east is sloping downhill. By the time you get to the eastern end of our project site, it's about 5 feet lower than the ground over the trunk line. So we just can't gravity. We could barely gravity any of the project into the College Heights line. And so we're going to need a lift station. But the idea here is that in the future, the city is going to run a trunk line up Sunland from Upjohn, bring it up Sunland, across Bowman Road, and then on up to where we could tie in our sewer system. So we're going to lay a dry sewer line that will flow to the east on the planning on the future connection there when development allows the city to extend a trunk line up, and when that happens, then the sewer lift station would go away.
Okay, so in this same section here, my only concern in the language, other than let's put the track map in there, is what happens if you don't? If you don't maintain it, and you don't take care of it, and you don't pay for it. I'm trying to figure out how are you funding, a slush fund for this?
It's going. The simple answer to that is the developer, if he wants to proceed with the single family development. Currently, apartments are one thing.
Right.
They're one commercial entity. You're not going to have a bunch of of interested parties. But once you add another interested party, they're going to have to form probably an HOA. And the HOA is going to charge a monthly fee. And everybody living within that area is going to have to pay for the maintenance of that lift station because the city's not going to want to maintain it. And frankly, I don't know what the history of HOAs are here in Ridgecrest. They're not bad. I mean, it's either that or a public utility or a community services district, and those are very difficult to form now. The state's passed some new laws that makes it practically impossible to form a community services district. And so a private HOA is probably going to be what happens with that. And that HOA would dissolve when if and when the sewer connection is made and the lift station is no longer needed.
Thank you. So, Lauren, I assume details of the size of this trunk line and the lift station has been provided to you?
No,
To accommodate,
we're not
to
at that
accommodate
state.
future growth and that?
We're not at the design state. This is in concept. It's
Okay.
a pretty easy task to come up with the design of the lift station, size of pumps and force main and so forth. It'll be a relatively small system.
Okay. So let's move on down to item 4, drainage improvements. So we've had before the commission here, this is 17 acres. We've had before the commission here some items that we were not requiring detention on. I'm concerned about maybe the language here because we've had as part of the record and public hearing that if we have a 100-year event, what's coming down College Heights is not going to be stopped. But yet we're requiring them to put in improvements for a 100-year event and not a 10-year event, considering that they're already required, and we've put in 2 sump parks in their development. Do we have a picture? Back that up.
Is this the planning commission?
Yes. Okay, so you'll see here on this diagram, we have 2 detention basins, which, as I read in the original plans, are basically pocket parks or sump parks. Are they not?
They're going to be part of the landscaped
Right.
area. I wouldn't call them parks. They're going to be a landscape feature. but it's-
Recreational area.
Yeah, there's going to be a walk. There'll probably be some walking paths or something like that through them, but they're not going to be something that people play in on a regular basis. And the reason for the need on this is that we sit upstream above other development, and we need to detain what is generated, additional stormwater that's generated by our project. But the way this development will be designed, there's going to be water coming down the hill from above in a major storm event. And so this will be designed to where when they fill up, they will bypass. There's going to be a system to pass the
Well,
flow.
and I'm okay with these, and I didn't mean to catch off, but I'm okay with these. But what I'm asking here is on 4.1, the majority of the project is shown in a FEMA maps as being in Zone X, having a 0.2% chance of flooding. However, a portion of the project is identified as FEMA in FEMA maps as being in Zone A, and having a defined drainage area directed at the site shown as a potential of flooding. So you want them to prepare a hydrology study and a hydraulic analysis for hydraulic area and determination of a 100-year flow event for the unimproved areas. What I'm asking, and it's really for Lauren, is why, if they're retaining their own water, or detaining their own water in a major event, then it would flow over. Because further on in this same area, we've knocked it down to a 10-year, but yet this is required to be a 100-year. And we've all agreed that a 100-year, if we have a 100-year event, we will not stop a 100-year event.
We're not.
No, you won't.
Yeah.
And the intent here is to identify that there's a portion of the area that does fall within the FEMA floodplain.
Well, I understand, but you
and-
go down to A, design, construct the flood proofing methods, design and construct for a 100-year event. I think we're asking, at least in my opinion, and that's up to the commission, I'm asking, could that be reduced to a 10-year event? Because there's no upstream detention, we're not going to stop a 100-year event. And if we ask them to do a 100-year event, that may be more expensive than is feasible.
Yeah, the hydrology study will really dictate or tell the tale and determine what sort of protection is necessary. What staff was interested in is to, first of all, the hydrology study will determine what the 100-year event would be as it is directed at the site. And from that then would be what sort of improvements are necessary to protect the site. And looking at the FEMA flood maps, it appeared that the portion was that interior street. And from what I'm told, that and from what Darrell has indicated in his analysis, is that we'd be using 8-inch curbs, and the streets would act as channels for this
Right.
for these major events. So the knee-jerk reaction to complying to FEMA is first of all, look at the hydrology, determine what the protection would be for that 100-year event, and exercise judgment as to what improvements would be necessary to protect the structures.
So can we then keep what you're talking about in preparing this hydrology study in section 4, number 1, but then basically delete part A, which says design and construct? Because I agree we need the hydrology study for part of that area that might be prone to flooding.
Well, we have to defer to FEMA and their regulations. However, the flood insurance requirements for an area that's identified within a flood study, we have to defer to what their requirements are for flood protection.
Right.
And all I'm doing is saying that it is identified on the FEMA maps and that a hydrology study needs to be conducted.
Right.
FEMA are the ones that provide the flood insurance, and so we're going to have to conform to whatever protection is necessary for
Right,
the
Lauren,
structures.
I understand that perfectly. What you're saying makes sense to me. But what I'm saying is that do we also have to keep the part A that says, regardless of what the hydrology studies says, we're dictating that we're locking in a 100-year flood plan.
Can I address that?
So, okay.
So FEMA sets the standard for flood mitigation, and FEMA has delegated their authority to enforce that to Lauren. We don't have to go to FEMA to get this project approved. Now, I have a little quibble with the way paragraph number 1 is written. There are a few minor errors in it, but the bottom line is that the project has to be flood safe.
Right.
We don't have to take care of all the problems caused by everything upstream of us.
Right.
But the fact is that whatever we build on this site, we have to be able to receive the flood as it hits our south boundary, and we have to be able to pass it through the tract and discharge it to the north without causing any homes or residents to be flooded. And FEMA's standard is you have to pass a 100-year event through the site. And when he says in paragraph A, design and construct flood proofing, generally what that means is we have to prepare a flood study, and we've already created the study. We have the model. We've run it. We know how much water is going across this site, and we have to make sure that all our pads are above the base flood elevation.
But that's what number
correct.
2. That's what number 2 says.
Well, yeah, and it could mean just as much as determining what the pad elevations would have to be for whatever that flood event might be. When Darrell does his study, he's going to determine what the what's called a base flood elevation, or what the depth of water would be affecting that site. And what that means to Darrell and us is that we protect the site by looking at what the finished floor elevations or what the pad elevations would be, and it'll allow that 100-year event to bypass or not affect the structures, but continue
Well,
on.
and that's how I read, because you come down, design and construct, improve to the drainage area tributary to the site. So actually, if we've got water coming down, we're going to divert, we're going to this, we're going to that, and that's where I come in with the design and construct. But I'm concerned if, and just as Jessica was saying, that yes, we can do a 100-year study, but are we going to come down and lock this into a 100-year event on item A?
We're just trying to maintain consistency is all.
Well, you have
in
to.
what we've said with prior developments in this area. So I just want to make sure we're consistent. Is my concern.
Go ahead.
The Ridgecrest Master Drainage Plan, which is rather old, but it's well done, and everything in it's still valid. It studies. It has laid out all the flooding that's anticipated to hit the city, and it comes from places all around town. And so any new development that's out on the perimeter in one of these zones, you have to do a receive and discharge study, and the FEMA standard is what has to be done. And the FEMA standard is different from what we do for site hydrology. So site hydrology, which is what we deal with when rain falls on our site, we have to handle the rainwater on our site. That's a 10-year event, because that's the city standard that's been adopted by code. But when we're dealing with flooding, which is different from hydrology, the flood hazard is a different kind of study. When we're dealing with the floodwaters that we have to make our project flood safe to, we defer also. And the Ridgecrest Drainage Manual says this, it has to be a 100-year event. And so when we're dealing with flooding, we study a 100-year event. When we're dealing with site hydrology, it's a 10-year event.
Yeah, Darrell's got that right.
That's the difference.
That's exactly right.
So to make this easy, you're okay with the language?
I'm fine with the language, yes.
Okay. Okay. Are there any other questions from the commission before I turn it out to the public? Okay, then I will turn the time over to the public. This is a public hearing. If you have any questions or concerns, you can come up. Remember to state your name and your address for us.
I have one question.
Yes, sir.
And I'm assuming there might be other comments, but in the beginning of the conditions of approval, it says, so this is right at the bottom of the first page of the Planning Commission resolution. It has a paragraph that starts with the word note, and it says these conditions must be met on or before April 23rd, 2020. And I would like to request that date be changed first to say October 23rd, and I'd like it to have a 3-year time window rather than just 2. So can we make that October 23rd, 2021?
I don't have any problem with that. The commission?
I'm okay with it.
Staff? Any reason why we would not? Okay.
Okay, and if that being the case, I don't have any other comments. I'd request that the Planning Commission approve the project as recommended by staff.
We have one word change. Heather, where is that? Your word change in the resolution about the deferment.
That is condition 8.2.
Seven, 8, 2. Pay all development impact fees pursuant to the city council approve, and it's not an improvement, but it's a development agreement. So we're changing improvement to development
Deferral.
or deferral.
8, section 8, number 2.
Yeah, and also, if you don't mind, Heather, could you be sure and insert the track number in condition 3.1 relating to the sewer improvements? So it would just read adjacent residential tract number so-and-so and delete the word to the south so that we're specific about the tract that's being
Or you
served.
can leave residential tract number to the
Right.
south.
Okay, yeah, just insert the tract number right there to clarify the intent of the
Take
condition.
the plural out, take the S off of tract.
Yes, I believe that's track number 6869.
Okay.
Any other public comment?
And then you wanted the lighting change.
Yes. Condition 2,
So-
1, to say on-site.
On site. Any other public comment? Yes. If you'd like to make a comment, come up to the microphone.
I'm not aware of the department at all, so I can't really comment on that.
Okay. Then the chair will close this public hearing, and I will entertain a motion to approve the resolution with those conditions that were stated.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Lauren.
Chairman Cox,
Aye.
Vice Chairman Rajaratnam,
Abstain.
Commissioner Yates,
Aye.
Commissioner Dehan.
Aye.
3 ayes, motion carries.
Okay. Moving on to item 8. Daryl, we'll try and get you home early tonight.
Appreciate it.
Commissioner items, committee reports. Commissioner Dehan?
Yeah, so with the, I know our Parks and Recreation meeting, we're going to have a special one next week, so I can't really comment on anything with that just yet because we didn't have it earlier this month. I can speak a little bit about the infrastructure. I'll speak on part of it, and then if you want to, Warren, speak on the other half of it because it was a pretty lengthy infrastructure meeting, but a lot of information. We had some updates, things like that we're trying to make it clear in our municipal code about carports, since that was a debate we had a few months back. And so just trying to put really clear guidelines. And one of the things we noticed is making it to where we would just have it the front 10-foot right-of-way, but not necessarily keeping the code for the 20-foot from the front or side setback, as that seemed to be a little too much. So we were discussing that and amending that and then bringing that before the city in a meeting to amend that municipal code. And then I'll just really briefly, there was just an update that, I mean, we're still in negotiations with the Navy over the service agreement for the water treatment plant, but hopefully making progress with that.
Cecil?
Economic Development did not meet this month, and I missed the city org.
City org, we met on October 1st, and we discussed fare box ratio and short-term rentals. There are some houses which are being rented as Airbnb, so we wanted to see whether those can be taxed like we tax the hotel so that we can get some TOT. So city is looking into that.
Okay. I don't really have much to add. We did discuss options as far as carports in the front, and we will be having a public hearing next month, correct?
Correct.
And in relationship to that, that's close to Thanksgiving. Is it the Tuesday before Thanksgiving we're having Planning Commission?
I believe it's the 27th, so it's after.
Okay. And yeah, then we got an update on our agreements with the Navy on our sewer plant, and that's what we worked on there. Any other commissioner comments? Item B.
Then the roads, we spent a long
Well, we did. We talked. We had, interesting enough, we had a Councilwoman Stevens brought in a contractor. I don't know if they were already here or she actually brought them in for that meeting, and they talked about the paving machine, the microfiber. We had an extensive report from them, some of the climate changes. They went out and looked at our streets. I assume they went out with our city engineer, did they not? Did you go out with them, Lauren?
I believe they went out with Les Wood.
Okay. Which runs the yard. And so they looked at our streets, the different conditions, what needed to be done, how you could reclaim it, how you could save money, recommendations. They do make a machine. They're not, it was interesting. They were not really there selling their machine, although they would sell you one. They are a big enough group. They go all over the world, from Saudi Arabia to the Philippines to the United States. They have a vast climate experience. I appreciated their report, and so they talked about our roads and what our plans were, made recommendations, and I thought it was time well spent. Did you, Lauren?
Yes, I thought it was very informative.
So, yeah, it was good. Any other commissioner comments?
We approve some abatements. We don't hear what is happening on that. So do you have any update on South Sunland?
I do have an update for you.
Okay.
Oh, she was ready.
All you gotta do is ask.
Wow.
So I have the update for the 230 South Sunland Street. So there was the before, and it was abated. So
Right.
it is
So
gone.
he did not get it sold.
He did not know.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
I think that's it. Yeah.
Well, I'm proud of the commission being willing to give him that leeway to try and facilitate something.
Yeah.
So, and that makes that a lot better. Any other items? Other commissioners? Future agenda items that you would like to see?
One other commendation. So I went to Starbucks today. That road was very graciously wider, and so I just wanted to commend, yes, the driveway. I apologize for not saying that right. Yeah, going in, it wasn't as tight and constricted, so that was nice to see. I don't go to Starbucks every
So
day,
I
some
would
people,
like
so.
to thank the city engineer, our Ron Strand, the city manager that got involved as well when we talked about it, and so I felt like the city staff and as well as the commission, taking that on and listening to those that came before us. So I am proud of the commission there. Any other future agenda items that it's not open to the public, sir?
I have a question for someone who had, see if they had a hearing today. She right after 6.
I'm not following you, because normally what we have on the agenda, if you'll notice, is items that are not on the agenda. There is a section where you have an opportunity to speak to the commission, but is it you want to talk to the commission or the city council?
The planning commission, Susan Howell behind me had appointed
Come up to the microphone, sir. Oh, that's okay. I'm okay. Okay. So just so you know, things that aren't on the agenda that we can't take any action on. And so if there's some sort of resolution that you would like, it would have to be put on next month's agenda and actually be a line item.
Well, I have a City of Ridgecrest Police Department letter that says Susan Howell has a hearing today at 6.
Okay. And what is this regarding?
It's about a sidewalk being raised up, but the state laws that were looked up shows that the city is responsible for the sidewalks unless the resident property is near a park or on a highway.
They want me to rip the whole front sidewalk in front of my house because I have a hump in the sidewalk. This has been there since 2012. And the people that lived in my house before I did complained about it to the city, and the city did nothing about it. And they said it wasn't responsible for the property owner. Well, now I get my next door neighbor who is involved with the police department in some way, reports me from having that hump in my sidewalk, and the code enforcement says I have to do this now. I have to rip this out. I have to put a new part in, and I got an estimate that cost $1,500. You know what that does to my Social Security check? It wipes it out.
So, Lauren.
I'm sorry if I'm angry, but, you know, I cannot afford that. And I was told, when I first moved into this house, that half the block was zoned light industrial, and half the block was some other zoning. Okay, the light industrial side, all the sidewalks and the streets and everything is done by the city. I happen to live on the side of the one that the city is responsible for. I asked for information for the city. I had detailed questions because I wanted to know what the laws were and how I was covered.
Let me.
You know what they did to me? They went and made me wait a month to get the information. And according to California state law, you are supposed to give some information in 10 to 14 days. Nobody did that to me. They had me wait a month. Then they sent me a letter saying I have to wait another month. And they said this work had to be done before a certain deadline. If it wasn't done for a certain deadline, I would be in trouble with the city commission, planning commission.
Well, that's the abatement officer's recourse is to come to us. So now let me get a definition for you, because as I understand it, and I'll ask our city engineer, as I understand it, what you need to understand is on a typical lot, like this picture that we have right here, okay, the property line goes out to the curb. So in other words, your property line is at the curb. Now the city maintains a 10-foot utility easement back from the curb. And that's where utilities can go. But it's not city property, it's private property. You own it.
But why was I told that when you have a zoning of light industrial, that is covered by the city? And the one that isn't zoned light industrial is private. The people, private property, they have to pay for it. Why is it that way? I'm
unaware that there is a zoning, but let me ask, just for your gratification, you made the effort to come down here. We've kind of gone out of the agenda item, and if it's okay with the commission, Lauren, can you explain this for her?
Oh, well.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we are mandated by the Streets and Highways Code. The state mandates that sidewalks, and including curbs and gutters, are the responsibility of the landowner, without distinction between whatever the zone might be. Now, the exception to that is wherever there is a wall, typically along arterial streets where there's a wall that separates the property from the street or the sidewalk. Those sidewalks and curbs and gutters, the city has been responsible for, and that's by the municipal code, by the way. But our municipal code has adopted the Streets and Highways Code, which mandates that the property owner, the landowner, is responsible for his curbs, gutters, and sidewalks.
Thank you. So, although we have how do I put that? Empathy and understanding. The city is not the one that has to fix the hump in the sidewalk. We have them all over in front of my office. We've had to do it, and I've had to replace it. And so
this has been there for years. Nobody complained about it. Nobody sent the code enforcement out or nothing.
Well, I understand, but as the code enforcement,
and then I get in that house, and then it comes on to me.
yes. So I understand. I want you to know that we as a commission understand. But under the rules, there is not anything that we can do to give you relief.
According to Article 2 for repairs on 5610, it says the owner of lots or portions of lots fronting on a portion of a public street when the street is placed or improved, or if when the area between the property line or adjacent property and the street lines is maintained as a park or parking strip, shall maintain any sidewalk in such condition, and that sidewalk shall not endanger persons or property, and maintaining a condition which will not interfere with public convenience in the use of those works and areas, save and subject to these conditions created or maintained upon the connection of such sidewalk would by a person other than the owner, under the virtue of any permit, right granted to him by law, or by city employees, city authorities in charge thereof. Such persons shall be under like duty. From our understanding, seeing that, according to what she read, that's the exception if the property is on a park or like on a highway, they should be responsible for the sidewalk.
Since we can't make a decision on this, as it wasn't on the agenda, are we able to table this to a future meeting and some infrastructure, whatever, if it can't be on there?
So this is what we're going to do. We're going to table this, and we're going to allow it to come back next month and instruct staff to talk to code enforcement so that we can have some leeway here. Okay? So that they don't have any adverse effects till they get heard.
Yes, this was public noticed, but I did not get it on the agenda. So it is, and they did try to reach her, but they did not have a correct phone number anymore to make the party aware that it would not be heard tonight. So we're sorry for that.
So do you understand what we're going to do here?
We apologize. We were just told by the city of Ridgecrest through the police department through the letter that she has to show up there over at this plan commission meeting. Didn't tell us any procedures. Told us to show up there. If we didn't show up, then there could be consequences for it.
Right. And so what I'm suggesting and the commission is asking staff to do is to have the police department, the code enforcement, to do nothing until you can be heard. Meanwhile, we can get some pictures, we can find out where the property location is, and we can properly hear it, because we can't really take any action on it because it's not part of the agenda. And to really have this heard, it should have been in the public section, where things that aren't on the agenda, and we way past that. So we're going to put it on next month. We'll talk to the police department so that you have relief there, so that we can have a chance to hear it, see the pictures, find out where it's at, drive by it ourselves, and go from there. Okay?
You would allow her to present her evidence and photos and information.
Yes. By putting it on the agenda, she can present whatever information she wants.
She was not aware of having put the agenda. She thought it was like court, where you get a paper saying show up here, and that's basically it.
Right.
Could you mark down that Susan Howe did appear as requested according to the police department's paperwork?
We can do that.
Yeah, there's not going to be any punitive action for you.
Yeah, there won't be any additional action.
I also want to notify the Plan Commission that Susan did file a government claim against the city. May we give you a copy?
Sure.
Thank you for your patience. I'm not real familiar with I'm more familiar with Court with a case I had before.
Copy of it and have it for the next meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is this your only one, sir?
We have some other ones.
Okay.
We'll give it to staff, and they'll make copies and put it in our packet. Okay, thank you to both of you for coming down.
We have our P.O. box.
Yeah, I was going to say, can you give your current information so by phone and by mail we can contact you?
Okay. Does any?
My PO box is 1856.
Well, just afterwards you can.
Oh, afterwards.
Yeah.
Do you have any scratch paper or something that I could put on?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, Lauren. Okay, thank you. Staff items? None? Okay, then I will call this meeting adjourned at 6:53.
Thank you.